Good evening. Welcome to the Tacoma Public Schools Board of Directors business meeting for Thursday, September 14th, 2023. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and please rise and join me for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Tacoma Public Schools acknowledges that we are on the traditional, ancestral, and historical lands of the Puyallup tribe of Indians. We honor with gratitude the land itself and the Puyallup tribe. This acknowledgement serves as a first step in honoring our nearest tribal neighbors and partners who have inhabited this region since time immemorial and to whom we give thanks for allowing us passage to their lands. We shall intentionally create inclusive and respectful partnerships and honor Indigenous cultures, histories, identities, and socio-political realities. General Counsel Benro, would you please call the roll?
Yes. President Bombright?
Here.
Vice President Strozer?
Here.
Director Leon?
Here.
Director McElroy?
Here.
We have a quorum.
And Director Keating is excused this evening. Thank you for that. Okay, we are moving to item number 5, adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt?
I move to adopt.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments, questions, amendments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Okay, passes 4-0. Item number 6, recognition of staff, students, and community. Going 6.1, state holidays and civic observances. I'll turn it over to our general counsel to walk us through this.
Yes, President Bombright, we have 3 state holidays and/or civic observances in the month of September. The first is National Hispanic Heritage Month. So National Hispanic Heritage Month begins each year on September 15th and goes until October 15th. This is a celebration of Hispanic and Latinx culture and history. In 1968, Congress declared Hispanic Heritage Week, which was later expanded into a month in 1988. So this month, schools are encouraged to highlight our diverse Hispanic and Latinx community so we can learn from each other's cultures, values, and traditions. Our second recognition, 6.1b, this is Labor Day, state holiday of Labor Day. It's observed the first Monday in September, and Labor Day is an annual celebration of the social and economic achievements of American workers. Our last, this is a civic observance, is Constitution and Citizenship Day. It's observed annually on September 17th, which is this coming Sunday. Constitution and Citizenship Day commemorates the September 17th, 1787 signing of the United States Constitution. I'm going to have one plug to make, so for any staff, any teachers, or any administration in the buildings, we do have some resources provided by Justina Johnson's department for curricular materials that you can find on National Hispanic Heritage Month, and that's located on the hub.
Thank you for that. All right, item number 7, superintendent's report. 7.1, new school year update.
Madam President, Board of Directors, as Kevin reminded me, happy first board meeting of this new school year. And so Mark's going to help guide me, and I'm going to share some, the old saying, a picture says 1,000 words. And so we built a little bit of a slide deck for you, thanks to our great communications department. And the first slide you see is Team Fawcett opening up, and that is Principal Aaron Curtis, literally giving the countdown for the students to come into the Fawcett Elementary. And I know each of you had a chance to visit, but I would say we did our retreat there. The feel on the first day of school was much different for those who got to join. And the next slide is pictures of that Team Fawcett coming in there. And our third slide, more joy from Team Fawcett. Our fourth slide is some pictures from Meeker, and just a kind of a reminder that you may or may not have gotten a chance to see that there was several projects out in our schools with some new playgrounds, upgrades to athletic facilities, pools, HVAC, and so much more. Next slide, please. So our students from both Oakland and Bryant, Oakland High School and Bryant K-8 Montessori, are in our swing sites this year. And so Oakland is over at McKinley, and Bryant Montessori Middle School and elementary schools are over at our West End Swinging School. And so here's some of our great students that have kicked off over at those new schools. And so we're excited to break ground in those construction and get further down the road, but also remembering that it's a difficult time for there. More of our students enjoying the first days. Next slide, please. Mount Thomas Tatua Pacifica Club performed and welcomed their classmates. And so here's a picture, and I know that many of us have had a chance to see them live and in person, and so it was truly a great day at Mount Tahoma. Next slide. You see some more of our Oakland team and our Foss Falcons. Our next slide. More great pictures of staff. Next slide. Two important dates that are Tuesday, we welcomed the class of 2036.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll let that sink in for all of us adults. The class of 2036. I did some math, and I'm not going to tell you how long it's been, but that's pretty exciting. And so we saw kindergartners starting to roll in this week, and that brings a whole nother life and excitement to the buildings. And then this next Monday is our first day with our preschoolers, and we're really excited to welcome them to our schools as well. And some great pictures there. Thank you so much. So lots of great activities. We're full swing into our extracurricular activities across the board. Beyond the Bell and Club B registrations are continuing to come in. We're always looking for folks to help. They can go to the Metro Park site or the Green Trike site if they want to become involved in those activities. Schools feel great. And I'll pause there, and I just want to give a special shout out to all of our staff. I hate to give shout outs, team transportation, team nutrition services, team security, go down the line, team teaching staff, team ESP staff, team principals, team support staff, team general operations staff, team board staff, all the way down. It's been really fun in getting back, and the general feel I get is when I'm asking folks, the volleyball match between Silas and Stadium was just jam-packed, school spirit's alive and well. And so we're really encouraging people to be safe, happy, healthy, engaged, supported. Be patient. We're still balancing out classes. This is not unique to us every year. There's a great video on our webpage about why we moved teaching staff, if we have to move teaching staff, but teams are really working hard to stabilize as fast as we can and making sure. We are currently hiring, so if you know of a wonderful person that would like to be a part of the Team Tacoma, please have them reach out, and we'd love to have them join our staff. So thank you, Madam President and Board of Directors.
Thank you, Superintendent, and thanks. I'd like to give a shout out as well on behalf of the board to all of our staff, and then whatever your role is, you're an important person in this work that we do for the youth, the young children and youth in our community, and I want to thank you all, and especially for all those folks who played a part in summer late nights with the custodial staff and the others who made it possible for us to use our facilities in a way that kept our kids safe. And we'll talk a little bit more about the summer late night in the program today, but I just wanted to just let all of you staff know that you are appreciated and we're grateful for what you do every single day. Okay. Staff report to the board, item 8. There is none today, unless the superintendent has something else that he wants to talk about. Okay. And so item 9, members of the public wishing to address the board. And I don't see any public members sitting in the audience, so I would say, have you received a card of any kind?
No written or verbal comments today.
So we do not have any written comments, and since we don't have anyone in the room of verbal comments, we'll just move on. But I will call, is there anyone in the room who would like to speak to the board? Okay. Moving to item 10, the consent agenda.
I move to adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments, questions, or on the consent agenda? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes 4-0. Item 11, policy matters. There are none tonight. Item 12, the fiscal report. The district's next financial report is planned for November 9th, 2023. Monthly financial statements can be found on the district's website at https://www.tacomaschools.org/department/business and finance. Item 13, curriculum and instruction. Item 13.1, approval of the contract number TSD-23-130 between Auburn School District and Tacoma Public Schools from September 1, 2023 to August 31st, 2024.
The Deputy Superintendent, on behalf of the Director of Student Services, recommends that the Board of Directors approve contract number TSD-23-130 between Auburn School District and Tacoma Public Schools from September 1st, 2023 to August 31st, 2024, with an expected revenue of approximately $45,000 per student per year.
I move to adopt 13.1.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions on this item? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes 4-0. 13.2, approval of the interlocal agreement between the University of Washington and Tacoma Public Schools for UW in the high school program for the 2023-2024 school year.
The superintendent, on behalf of the assistant superintendent of K-12, on behalf of the executive director of secondary education, recommends that the board of directors approve the interlocal between the University of Washington and Tacoma Public Schools for college and high school from August 31st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024.
Is there a motion?
I move to adopt item 13.2.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes 4-0. Item 13.3, approval of the Early Childhood Education and Assistance Program, ECAP, fiscal year 2023-24 continuation grant. And Mr. Edmonds.
The Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning recommends that the Board of Directors approve the Early Childhood Education and Assistance Program continuation grant from July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024 in the amount of $2,160,004.77. Funding source, early learning.
I move to adopt. I wore my shirt.
Yes, I see. That was so nice. So we have a motion.
Sorry.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, and I will just say that anytime we can invest in our youngest learners, it's always a good investment, so I'm fully supportive. Anybody have any comments or questions on this one? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Passes 4-0. Thank you, Lizzie. Item 14, business matters. 14.1, approval of the bid acceptance for the West End Swing School and Professional Development Center fire alarm replacement project.
Just as a reminder, the West End Swing School is the old Skyline site. The Chief Operating Officer recommends that the Board of Directors accept the bid for West End Swing School and the Professional Development Center Fire Alarm Replacement Project from J.A. Morris in the amount of $1,110,300 excluding sales tax.
I move to adopt item 14.1.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions? I guess I would ask, can you talk a little bit more about why this is necessary? It's a swing school. What does that mean for the public?
Right, as we continue to build schools now in the future, we need to maintain a swing site to relocate students from their current school, so we need to allocate funds to keep up that facility.
And this one is also our professional development center. And so that has students from the community-based transition program and a number of staff members there, as well as there's a cafeteria there that allows students from, well, currently that would be the Bryant K. Montessori program school to attend. So it's broader than just the one site in there. So it's an
And they're mostly
opportunity.
repairs and updates and upgrades.
Correct.
Right. Okay. These buildings are old, so. All right. So we'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. All right. Item 14.2, approval of the negotiation and contract for school bus general education transportation. And our CFO is here. Roslyn?
Thank you. The Chief Financial
Officer recommends that the Board of Directors authorize the superintendent to award the contract dependent upon ridership needs in the estimated amount of $53,399,287 for school bus transportation to first student, funding source, state funds, Program 99.
I move to adopt item 14.2.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions on this particular item?
I've got a question that pertains to this and the next item. Okay, have I asked that one? Because they're kind of interrelated.
Sure, go
Have
ahead.
you? Just curious, the next item is for upgrades and maintenance to buses. But first student owns their buses, but we own some transportation equipment. So there, one's for the running of everything, one's for maintenance. Just wondering, wouldn't that be included in?
Right. For the buses that First Student owns and operates, or they maintain those. But because we offer a fleet of vehicles utilized for our special education students, we need to be servicing those buses. And so that's what the maintenance contract will provide for us, to be able to maintain the buses that we own for our special education students.
That's the ones we own, but first student will help maintain them.
Correct.
Okay.
And we don't have the resources internally to be able to do that. We don't have infrastructure, we don't have a space to do it, we don't have the staff to do that, or the equipment.
So that's the next item, correct?
And
It is the next
It
one.
is.
Okay.
I understand how they're interrelated.
Yeah, no, thank you for saying that, but, and so the question is, this one is for operating the
Correct.
buses throughout the year, correct?
Correct. This is for First Student to provide general education transportation services.
Okay. So anyone else have another question on this? Okay, hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes 4-0. Item 14.3, approval of the negotiation and contract for school bus maintenance. I just heard about this.
The Chief Financial Officer recommends that the Board of Directors authorize the superintendent to negotiate and award the contract for school bus maintenance to First Student for the contract value of $600,000 exclusive of sales tax for a period of 3 years, with an option to extend the contract for an additional 2 years. Funding source, state program, Program 99. State funds, excuse me, Program 99.
I move to adopt.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Does anyone have any other questions? That was a good question about what's the difference and why we have this. So anyone else have a question? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Cool. Okay, thank you, Leslie. Other business, item 15, 15.1, the adoption of resolution number 2128, outstanding warrants.
The Chief Financial Officer recommends that the Board of Directors adopt Resolution Number 2128 and cancel warrants that have remained outstanding for over 1 year. And just a note that these are checks that we've issued and tried to share out with either staff or other parties that have been doing business with us where we owe them money, and they have not been cashing those checks. So we've done notifications and exhausted our resources to be able to try to get those resources delivered to those individuals. Now what we will do is take them off of our books and send them out to the state, and anybody who is on this list that sees this, or if you know anybody on this list, please tell them to reach out to www.claimyourcash.org.
I love that title. It's great. It's just really clear. Thank you, Roslyn. Okay, so it is a resolution, so I'm assuming that we are doing a roll call vote.
Yes. President Bombright, how do you vote?
Did we move it?
Oh, go ahead.
Had we moved it yet? Got lost. Okay, we've moved it. Okay, so.
I'll move it.
Thank you.
I was trying to help.
Move it, girl.
It's moved. I mean, I moved to adopt.
Who wants it? It's been moved and seconded. Now, we're going to have the general counsel read the roll.
All right. President Bombright, how do you vote?
Aye.
Vice President Strozier, how do you vote?
Aye.
Director Leon, how do you vote?
Aye.
Director McCullery, how do you vote?
Aye.
Passes 4-0.
Okay, perfect. All right, so the next item is really exciting and important to us as board members. It's item 15.2, the adoption of the board's annual goals and objectives for 2023-2024 school year. And just to explain to the public why this is so important is, so before the general counsel, kind of introduces this, I'm going to provide some background on the information for members of the public. The board has some background information. The board has a policy on adopting its annual goals, and you can find it in Board Policy 1810, which says that each school year, the Board of Directors shall vote to adopt a number of goals not a specific number, but some goals, which, quote, may include but are not limited to the board functions of vision, structure, accountability, and advocacy, unquote, for the school district. So each year we do that, and last year, you may recall, on our 2022-2023 school year, we had 3 board goals. They were meaty goals, and you might recall that we dedicated a significant amount of time to those goals and got really engaged and involved, and it took a lot of time to do so. So I just want you to keep that in mind in terms of how many goals we passed this year, because we're trying to maintain, all of our availability to get these done. So at our board retreat in August, which was just a couple of weeks ago, we brainstormed some ideas for those goals, what they might be, and now we're here to formally discuss, consider them, and decide which ones we want to adopt for 2023-2024. We have four goals have bubbled up. Again, we don't have to pass all 4. Let's think specifically about time commitment and energy levels in terms of what we focus on for this year. For the members of the public, you should know that the board and the superintendent and district staff work towards each of these goals each year, all year long, but under policy 1810, the board has to select a few areas of focus for ourselves that we work on collectively and individually during the school year, and we review our progress at the end of the school year. So the process tonight will be to address each of these 4 goals that have bubbled up individually. I will ask General Counsel Malik Benro to introduce each goal. Once moved and seconded, which will happen up here, I will open the discussion on that specific goal. Following the discussion, I will call for a vote on that goal, and then we will proceed each in the same manner through all 4 goals. Okay? Any questions on the process? Okay, so General Counsel, I am going to turn it back over to you to start with the first goal.
Yes, this is agenda item 15.2A. Goal 1, under the health and safety / environmental stewardship heading, the district council recommends the board of directors adopt goal 1 under health and safety / environmental stewardship. The text of the goal is the bottom part there, which is this year the board of directors will work with staff to conduct a comparative analysis across municipalities on environmental green practices related to transportation, including fiscal impacts and potential policy implications. So this isn't a roll call vote. This is if you'd like to do it that way, it's just a voice vote.
So first I'll call for a motion.
I'll move to adopt.
Okay,
Second.
it's been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions on this particular goal? I think it's really a follow-up to the work we did last year on a goal where we asked our general counsel to do an assessment of kind of where we were on policies around environmental stewardship. And one of the concerns that we all raised up here, and I know that Director Leon brought it up many times, is the idea of transportation and going electric, or what are the options? How are we going to be responsible in moving forward and thinking about that? So that drove us to have a conversation, which turned into this goal. Anyone have any questions or comments?
So I do think, it's, in some ways, all of our goals can be lofty. I think this is one of loftier one that is not all within our, let's say, control or purview or financial ability to bring something to fruition. So, but it is interesting in that we could maybe help stimulate the community, if not other Pierce County or at least Tacoma partners, to start considering what, without getting into the weeds, what's been done in other communities, other districts, what can work for Tacoma in the way of making our environment more sustainable. But it is lofty, and it relies on potentially other, we're not saying we're going to make something occur in a year, right? We're looking at investigating what the possibilities are. So I think it's, I just want, the public can understand what we're grappling with here.
Right. We're doing a comparative analysis of of other municipalities and other entities, and seeing what they're doing and seeing how we can
So it could, because as you mentioned earlier, our time constraints, if we do, maybe for the we're going to vote, the 4 of us, we could vote no on all these or yes on all these. And then maybe at the end, do we then consolidate again and say, well, this is a process question. Would there be a secondary discussion of, oh, we will keep all four if we vote for all four? Oh, well, we decide maybe one of them, we feel like we don't have enough time as a board to contribute enough time to. This is a process question, not just
Right.
about this.
Sure, no process, and I can turn it over to Malik, but also to say that I believe we're going through and voting on them, and then we're done, but,
Yeah, one way to look at it would be, if you had in mind, or, it's on the agenda, you had it before the board meeting just now, if you had in mind what number of goals you were looking to adopt, now or before would be a time to think about if you wanted to adopt two, which two, if you want to adopt three, which three, if you want to address all four, and you can decide it then and there. So each of them is written in here as a single light item. I think the confusion might arise is that in past years, we've sort of adopted all four at the same time, or however many, all three at the same time. Here, we're just considering them individually, so if there was some that some folk wanted and other folk wanted, that's how we would address it at the dais.
So my other
Technical question.
comment,
I just wanted, so that we don't make a mistake here.
Sure.
If the board chooses to, continues down this road, and they vote goal number one in,
Mhm.
we wouldn't go back and say, well, now, later down the road, we don't want number one.
No, you voted one in, that's one of your
That's why
goals.
I think the question.
that's part of my process question.
Yes.
Gotcha.
I just want to make sure that, did I
Thanks for
capture that
clarifying.
right?
Yes, you captured that right.
Thanks for clarifying, yeah.
okay.
So I think we can consider also, in our discussion of these goals, we're not saying certain numbers of resources, certain number of hours are being committed right this moment. So as we develop and get more information on each goal, whatever they may be, we may decide, oh, this is attainable, or this is unattainable at the level we originally thought, but we're going to find another level we feel like helps our district and our knowledge base. So maybe it's less time we spend on something. I think that could change as we progress,
proceed.
as we proceed,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I would just add that if 2 months from now in a board meeting in November or in January, you wanted to take some action to work towards a step, that could be done then too. These are just under 1810 at the early part of the year.
We
Adopt those
have to
focus
adopt
goals
goals, right.
in June, review the progress as sort of a yearly, cycle that we go through on these.
Yeah, and we had a productive year last year. We touched in significant impact on each one of our goals, but it was a lot of time, so I just wanted to remind folks that. Okay, so are we ready to move forward? Although
I feel
we,
weird about
Comments?
this one now.
wait, what?
Nothing.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I abstain.
Okay, so we have one abstention, it's 3-0, so the goal does pass, okay? Moving on to item 15.2B.
Yes, the district council, general council recommends the board of directors adopt goal number 2 under the academic excellence/equity framework. Again, the language appears at the bottom. This year, the board of directors will focus on improving the success of TPS students enrolled in Indian education by expanding our board knowledge and expertise around tribal relations, sovereignty, and culture.
I move to adopt item 15.2.E.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments on this item or questions?
A comment. This past, well, not even too long ago, in June, the Supreme Court upheld ICWA, which is the Indian Child Welfare Act, and I think it was really intentional of our board to look into how we're actively engaging students, tribal students within our district. As an ECAP teacher in the district, I remember meeting those families and learning about their culture and learning about their food and learning about why their injustices over time have impacted the way that we govern and work with all students. So I'm really appreciative that we took the time to actually dig into this, look at it, and then how we'll engage this year. So I'm grateful that we talked about it, and hopefully, that's it.
Right, and I would add that last year we learned an awful lot. We did family engagement meetings with community members that we partnered with community leaders that brought families together. One was the Latinx, meeting, one was with Mi Centro, one was at Urban League, which was primarily African-American families, and then we had the Asian Pacific Islander group that we did with Louis' team. And so this is, the Native perspective is, I think, so important, especially because actually have, they're a sovereign nation that we have relationships with, and it's, I think, really good for all of us to, one of the things we're looking at doing is taking the training, the 3-hour training about, actually, what is the name of the training? Let me see here, I know it's. Strengthening tribal, yep, strengthening tribal consultation. That's how to best work with tribes efficiently. And then we want to do some family engagement meetings with tribal families that are in our district. So I think it's pretty exciting. All right, anyone else have any comments on this one? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we have another goal, 4-0. And now we are moving on to item 15.2C, goal number 3.
The district's general counsel recommends the board of directors adopt goal number 3 in the academic excellence/equity bucket. The text is below. This year, the board of directors will focus on improving access to TPS students enrolled in Tacoma Flex by increasing the percentage and total number of BIPOC students choosing Tacoma Flex and track relevant data regarding choice patterns and demographics.
Okay, it's been moved?
Move to adopt 15.2C.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. You want to introduce or discuss this one? You want to talk a little bit about it?
I may just, anybody else?
Mhm.
This is similar, but I think a wider group than 50.2, which is Native Americans and Indian. So this is Black, Latino, Pacific Islanders, can be people of color, but a lot of those other groups to help improve their academic performance through potentially using our flex system, which is, we believe has been underutilized numbers-wise. We're waiting maybe to get more numbers, but a potentially powerful tool to help students, to reach them and allow them to learn in a fashion that fits their learning style, whether it's for the public. So flex is either starting school 1 hour, 1 period later, or finishing school 1 period sooner to allow them flexibility on either end of the day for whatever it may be, studying duties, work duties, sleep, for their mental health. So that's some of the background.
I would say that I really appreciated this goal when it was reimagined and put this way. I think a listening session and like actually engaging with parents and families would be really helpful. I know, Dr. Leon, it's one of your passions, and I'd love to support you at a listening session if we pass this goal.
I think that we're I took some notes. I know we're a year into Flex, and I'm cautious about this one because I don't think that we're going to be able to board goal the numbers up.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the folks who are using it are using Flex because it benefits them. My concern is not necessarily putting extra effort behind it, but like making it a board goal makes it seem like I'd hate to get to a point where everybody has to choose if, are you going to do Flex or are you not going to do Flex? I think they're already doing that. So I'm a little apprehensive as it goes to this goal, just because, again, I don't think that we're going to be able to board goal the numbers of Flex up. Is it a great program? Absolutely. I think that those who need it are using it. So that's why I struggle with this one a little bit.
I'd like to Director Leon, I know this again is a goal that you're bringing forward, which I think is fabulous, but I have a question because I'm can you explain to me as a board goal, what we would do that's different than what the superintendent and the team are doing to bolster the participation in Flex? What do you see as the board emphasis? What would we spend our time doing on this goal?
I think if we understand, don't have some of the data around who's been using it, what the numbers are. I don't want to make statements because I don't have the numbers specifically, but they're low. You make mention of the people that need it are using it, but I don't believe that's always the case. I've met students and families that I've talked to about this and they didn't know it existed and said, oh, I wish I knew about that and I would have signed up for that. So I hear that frequently from families. So can we make a big impact just by making it a board goal? I don't know if we can, but I think that that would draw light to the fact that we have a potentially powerful program that a few more students could use. No, do we want everybody doing it? It's not for everybody at this point, the way it's made. But I'm confident there's a significant number of other families that would benefit from it. And that could be done by us understanding it, and then the staff could understand why some folks maybe that could use it aren't signing up for it, and reach out to those folks in a different way.
And for the public that's listening, when Director Leon was saying that you either come a period late or you leave a period early, you still have to take that class and make it up, and you have to do it remotely. Then it's not, you're still completing the coursework, and it's just a remote class. So I just want to make sure everybody understands it's not just free period.
No.
So anyway, so that's why it's complex for some families, because
Sure.
unless you're motivated to then go online and finish your class,
Yeah.
it could, yeah.
And to further clarify that, it's an asynchronous class normally, so you could take it at whatever
Whenever
hour of
you-
the day.
whenever you want,
Yeah,
yeah.
you can do it.
And other things to be considered too is who has who has internet access at the crib, who has a laptop at the crib. I know we provide them, but it doesn't work. Are there any issues with it? So it's just a lot of other pieces that go along with making sure that Tacoma Flex works. But then I also think about some of our other programs. We haven't made board goals about other programs to increase numbers. I think we.
Was that the goal?
What was
Yeah,
that?
basically.
The goal is to increase the numbers?
Increase the number of folks.
I was
that
looking
use it.
more at like the attainable part. I wasn't looking at the
Yeah.
specific part. And I think that's where I might have got confused, because in the attainable piece of the goal, it was, reviewing the data, conducting a listening session, examining efforts. But if the specific part is to increase, and you're saying in the past we haven't made other programs a goal.
I'm thinking
Right.
about, yeah.
They're not goal, programs aren't.
The
goals.
programs are programs.
Right.
Oh, man. Okay.
That makes sense?
I'm learning a lot.
Yeah.
The public is learning with me, okay?
Well, I think, can I make a suggestion? Because I think the information you're asking for is critical for us to know. And I think that, I believe in the superintendent, when do you think the flex numbers will be available from last year that we can analyze, by breakdown, by school, by population, demographic population and all of that?
You'll get total numbers tomorrow on your Friday report for last year. We are getting our fall numbers are rolling in, right? So you have students that are enrolling in that space. And so I've asked the team, just like when all the staffing is stabilized, the courses, and I believe September, I hate to say the specific date, but in there.
Later in September.
I've asked them to give you a fall update of the fall enrollment. So I have today's enrollments are ready, but I asked them to hold that report portion of it. So tomorrow you'll get some updates of the total numbers.
Perfect. And can you also share with us what we're doing to advertise it for families? Because I also hear what you're saying is that there's a lot of families that don't know it exists. So how do we, and see, I guess what I'm saying, I'm not sure if it's a board goal, it's really implementation, which is, what the superintendent and his team are doing. And I think last year was just a pilot. I mean, it was a program, but it was just starting. I'm just wondering, I know that I have seen it in the family newsletter.
It's on Facebook.
It's on Facebook, it's on the website. I'm not sure what other things that we're doing, but at the schools themselves, are there, I mean, you're right, there are things we could be doing. The question is, for me, is that a board goal, very specific to this program, or is that, just something that we need to be asking the superintendent for background and then taking that information and moving forward with it? So I'm on the fence about that one. Anybody else?
It could be both, or it could be one or the other, obviously. We don't have that information. We're going to get it tomorrow
Right.
from last year's data.
Right.
So there were some preliminary numbers in second semester that were still low, but we'll see what they are this year, and it may turn out that it's an issue that's been resolved. Part of this is also percentages of BIPOC kids,
Exactly.
not just absolute numbers, right? Are the kids that statistically study wise on delayed start at least, do better academically, are they taking advantage of this? It's their choice at this point. It's not a
Right.
mandated late start for everybody, right? So,
Right. So I might suggest, as you're thinking about how you're going to vote, I might suggest that we table this one in terms of a board goal, but not as a board action, that we stay on it. We ask for data, we then can have conversations, we could have, we could talk about it during a study session, we could do something like that, but not have it be a board goal. That's my thought. So, anybody else have any comments or questions? Okay, I shall call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Hey.
Any abstentions?
I abstain.
And I vote no. So it does not pass. But I like the topic, and I think we're going to continue to ask superintendent for background information. And then at some point, when we see the numbers and we see this needs some extra push, just because it isn't a board goal doesn't mean we can't engage.
Sure, and I hope that we just put it on a scheduled agenda for discussion and
So, okay.
in public discussion, yeah. Good.
Madam President, I heard a couple of comments there. And can do an October study session. If that's, something that you choose, you guys can debrief about that, and so that it's fresh in your minds if this is something that is something you all want to discuss. So you'd have your data in that spaces, and we could invite the team in to give you updates, course offerings, marketing materials, updates in that way. I'd offer you the September study session, but I believe that you are going to do some individual trainings.
Yes.
Potentially during that time, and we need a little bit of time to prepare, not just 1 week. So if that's a direction you would like to go, we could work in that direction.
Okay, so does that make sense? I'm trying to.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's basically being treated like a goal since we're having a study session, but.
Okay.
Okay, so item number 15.2.D, goal number 4, social emotional well-being, mental health.
The district's general counsel recommends the board of directors adopt goal number 4 under social emotional well-being and mental health. This year, the board of directors will focus on improving access for TPS students to outside medical providers to address student supports in depression and anxiety.
Do we have a motion?
Move to adopt.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any conversation on this one?
So I think anybody else want to?
No, go ahead.
Timely that we're talking about it today. Today is Suicide Prevention Week. We're in the middle of it right now. And this is something that many people and students and adults obviously suffer from, anxiety, depression. So I think it'd be interesting for us to consider this and see how we can connect students with their families, the ones that are not connected, confirm that the families are aware that there's a symptom at least. We're not diagnosing students at the school level. There are school-based health centers and counselors at one of our schools that could do that. But those are partner organizations. We're not talking about what our specific internal staff are doing. But if we can make a connection and let guardians and families know that there are symptoms, then there's a better chance that those students will either be in services or seek out services, and then hopefully we can find some other partnerships also to make that connection easier. This is also lofty, but I think very important.
So I would say that student mental health has been a focus of ours for as long as all of us have been on the board, I think. So, it's definitely an important topic. I know that we have in the past year raised, some resources from federal government, from the state, from private sector, locally as well, to help bolster and build up the internal system, but also, as you said, we have a dearth of actual providers in our community, and the need is much greater than the available providers. So I guess my question to you is, and I've seen what we're going to be, doing in the board, how we're going to do it, but I'm also questioning, so if we find, which I think we will, that there's a gap, a needs gap out there for providers to actually provide mental health services to our students and families, then what? What do we know that that's the case, so.
So there's a need gap, but there's also a connection gap. There's both. So we can maybe have some input in connecting people and confirming that guardians and families know that there's symptoms so they can act on them quicker. So I think it's quite important that that's something we could have impact on. We're not going to hire.
We're not going to fix the problem.
We're not going to open up a med school and a psychiatric school and, have nurse practitioners pop out of the woodwork.
So you are really focusing on what TPS can do?
Right.
I just wanted to be
Yeah.
clear. All right, any other comments?
I think that this board goal itself falls, it really runs in alignment with our health and safety goal for the district. And I think that a lot of the things that being proposed, we're currently, providing efforts and resources towards. I don't ever want to get on the microphone and say that this is not important, because it absolutely is. My concern is for me as an individual board director or a member of this body, what am I going to do? I know that I am not a mental health provider, and I am not going to be giving advice to anyone. I hear you when it comes to being able to identify early and catch when students are going through. But I wonder when it comes to this specific goal and I'm trying to, hold on, let me pull this back up. And the way it was actually written out when it comes to reviewing partnerships, again, that's something that's already in place. So how do we narrow it down? If we do decide to move forward with this as a goal, how do we narrow it down? Or how do we focus on lifting up what we're already doing? If we feel like we're not doing it at a high enough level, how do we have that conversation versus putting this as a board goal to move forward?
I think I have a question.
Yep.
Early in the year, so sometime between January and March, so I'm gonna go with that quarter, we had a study session on whole child, and during that study session, they kind of talked about this already, and that this is the work that they're doing also, was identifying new partners for social, emotional, mental health. Am I making that up, or do you recall?
No, we did.
So currently we partner, it's on our website, Catholic Community Services, Charlie Health, Comprehensive Life Resources, Consejo Counseling and Referral Services, Greater Lakes Mental Health, Multi-Care Health System, CMAR, and Seneca Family Agencies. And I appreciate what Dr. Allen's saying is we legally cannot diagnose, right?
Yeah.
We can't in that space. So that information is where we are today. It doesn't mean that there's not more that can be done, but that's our current partners. And there are resources, additional resources around behavioral health that we currently have. I think Director Leon's analysis, it's never enough.
Yeah.
I want to be crystal clear, is there's never enough.
I think in all of the goals, I've been looking at the attainable part, and how Director Strozer was saying what part of this will I do? And so told myself equally accountable to the attainable part, and that's why I was asking about that study session. So there are some experts who are doing this work, who are not me. I'm a preschool teacher. I love that. Because I'm looking at, I just don't know if I would be capable of doing the attainable part of this goal, or assisting in the attainable part. But I don't know if that's a question, but that's just kind of how, as I'm reading it, that's how I'm seeing it. That's all of my comments.
Okay. So, is everyone, do you have anything else you
Well, I
want to say?
think just to maybe clarify what you're saying a little bit, I think this would be, what could be part of what we do is review what our current communication strategies and protocols are around when a student comes in with those symptoms. We're not diagnosing them. Are we able to get a hold of a guardian that day, the next day, to let them know that these symptoms exist, and then they take the guardian or caregiver takes the ball and says, okay, we will deal with it, with getting them into whatever care they feel like is necessary, versus at this point, we're not monitoring or understand what those numbers are when students come in with those symptoms. We don't know how often it happens and
Yeah.
what the communication looks like for families to understand that then there's a symptom that day, or maybe it's repetitive, right? So-
I feel like there's a policy on it at the General Counsel Benroe at the last meeting we just had in August.
The retreat?
At the retreat, we were looking over some of the policies, and there was two of them that would be updated, leaning towards some of this conversation about how we interact with students who come in with any symptoms of depression or things like that. So like, there's a policy on how we will operate
We currently don't have one. It was something that could be prospective.
that
if
we
that's what
could
you guys would like.
possibly think
Correct,
about.
yeah.
My bad.
Yes.
I think the goal, the recommendation itself
Bless you.
is in alignment, I think, with all of us think is important. But I think we have the collective power or influence. I don't got to use my words
Responsibility.
lightly here. Collective responsibility, and also influence to say, hey, team, can we look at the things that you mentioned and have the data sent to us weekly? We could, again, bolster the resources that we already have without making it, like, I don't want to put all of this weight on making this a board goal when the action is already happening. Like, we're already doing it. So, like, how do we get reports on the things that are already in motion, right? Because you're right, we don't necessarily review that, but I think it's important information. So instead of making it a board goal, how do we, again, dive into it, working with the team to get the information that we would like to review on a consistent basis?
So you're saying as board directors, we can make that request of the superintendent to provide that information to us?
That's what lies in our influence,
Rather than
yeah.
making it a board goal.
Rather than making it a board goal,
Thank you.
yeah.
Would that actually meet your objectives?
Because I think we can do that
I'm
right away.
looking at
My
Director.
bad.
You said for being.
No. I was-
Director Leon. Would that actually, getting the data and the information is really a goal, as far, your goal, as far as I can,
Well, I think that's.
and then figuring out what to do about it.
Right, so do we have communication right now to guardians and parents? We're not following that, we don't have a protocol for it, as you've heard. So,
Yep.
right, so do we have, can we get that information? And if we do, can we see, are we doing okay with it? Great. Or are we not doing it, is there some room for improvement? And that's something that the staff could see if there's a method for improving the communication, transfer of communication of who is having those symptoms to the appropriate parental or guardian type person. There's a secondary layer then of going to treatment, which is much less within our control. But we have some partners already, as you've heard, and maybe expanding partnerships, whether it's new organizations or expanding school-based health centers with more mental health counselors from partner organizations present in those places. That could be part of the improvement.
So Superintendent, based on what Director Leon had just said, I'm wondering, because I'm not aware if the nurses or the counselors or maybe even the office staff, because a lot of kids,
Can't disclose.
go and speak to the office secretary. So about, they're stressed and all of that. Is there any recording of data of not necessarily the individual student, but the number of students who come and ask for some kind of help? I'm just curious, do we have a structure for this?
No, when we talk, it's a deeper conversation of symptoms of anxiety and depression. I heard that is the topic that we're talking about. I just want to, it's not mental health broadly, and there's a connection of that. It's symptoms of anxiety and depression. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
And so, for example, feeling sad or anxious maybe it is a symptom of, could be a symptom of depression or anxiety. Every time a student may feel sad or anxious, a staff member is not recording that in a data system.
Right.
And there's reasons for that. Are we diagnosing at that point? What we try to do is we try to partner with families. And I think Director Leon's point is well taken, is there isn't a system in there, but there are legal limitations to that. There is when we categorize things in a student record, are we making those statements in that? And so it's complex. Another example is feeling irritable. That's a symptom of that. To what level would we want to record in there? And so that's the challenge with these supports, and it's definitely a need. But this public schools doesn't have a system for that per se. But we focus in on that prevention. When there is a trend line, if you will, where a staff member, whether it's an office support staffer or a trusted adult or a counselor or a teacher sees a trend of that, the typical process is to work with a counselor at that point to build a family connection, to say, here's some of the things that we're seeing in that space. But we never move into diagnosis or recording of that into some record space. We work into, here are the services. We could capture those steps in a protocol and saying, here's best practices in those moves.
Okay, so I'm just trying, I'm looking at the goal as it's written in terms of the specifics, and then what's measurable and the attainable part, as you were talking about. And that looks doable, but when I hear Director Leon talk about it, it's a different thing. It's a much bigger piece, and I just want to make sure if we do move this forward, we do something that's going to create an infrastructure that supports students and families in a way that's doable by the staff, and not, I guess it's just, as you said, lofty, it's changing the whole system,
So the last line in that goal is what the part, I think you're maybe talking about, right? Focus on improving access TPS students to outside medical providers to address student supports and depression and anxiety. So we could change the wording of that right now, right? Are we allowed to do that?
You
Yes.
can move
Yeah,
to amend
yeah, we can
it.
do that.
You can-
Just amend the.
So we could, as we're having this discussion, which I think is valuable, we could change it to identification, whether it's a trend line, probably a single event is undoable, right? So
Right.
if there's a trend line, then is there a system that captures that, to then gives it to the counselor or the nurse to then make a call or contact a guardian to say, this is the trend we're seeing, we're letting you know so you can take action, so that guardian
And are
can
we
take action.
thinking that that's not happening now? Is that,
Well,
because it seems if.
I would say there's some things
it-
in the schools, because I've worked in the schools, that are not explicit in that way for a reason. Because there's other violating factors that you could accidentally do as a teacher. So not an admin, they know a lot more than I do, right? Shout out to y'all. And y'all know a lot more than I do too. But when I'm teaching in the classroom, like there's some steps that I could maybe misunderstand or comprehend if it was laid out in that way. Like if a student tells me they're in the blue zone 3 days in a row, which is sad, and they're excessively sad, and then I decide, well, I'm going to make this call and I'm going to tell the parent this based on a board goal, it's just like, I feel like we are getting into the weeds, which isn't our job. And it's kind of like, you're going to get pushback not only from, people here, but also like other teachers. They're going to say you're imposing on how I must operate. And there's already CPS and other ways that we have to mandate things. So especially with depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, there are ways that that we're mandated reporters. And the certificated teachers have much more mandates on top of what ESPs have much more mandates on top of what a child care provider has. So I feel like we're just kind of getting into the weeds of how someone is to do their job if we were to amend this second sentence.
and I'm not saying we get into the weeds, though. I think we can keep it very general to have a evaluation of what is being done here and what is being done maybe at other.
Well, it was the
other-
data part. That's the part where I'm like, we're getting to the weeds, because the amount of phone calls that you make on students per week, per day, no matter what it is. So it's adding another layer of, and then I have to notate this here, and then I have to put this here, I have to submit this report here, and it's due by XYZ date. And the teachers and staff already have that. Or the office staff who are not technically certificated. I'm in office, I'm taking the front desk, I'm taking the calls, and a student comes in and tells me, hey, I'm super depressed. And then there's this other protocol, there's these other layers that we're adding to it. I was actually kind of okay with the goal as it was stated, but to add it in that way, I don't know. As someone who's worked in the schools, I don't think that that's tenable. Like, I don't think that would actually make sense. I think that there could be a policy put in place to talk about how we, there is a policy 4000, which is about community relations and how we are making sure that there's a two-way conversation. And we already have our partners, which are listed on our public-facing website. If a teacher feels there's a need or an admin feels there's a need, they're providing resources. I feel like it is already being addressed in the current policy without a procedure and a documentation of data. And I think there's other ways to get this data. Medical professionals can look at their data of kids who are saying they're depressed and suicidal. I don't think that it's the school's job to collect that data for that entity. That's not our role.
We're not making the diagnosis of depression. You mentioned something else in there about suicidal ideation. That's way different in advance. We're not talking about that, right? At least that's not what I was trying to discuss.
But it all aligns because, okay, so I'm saying as a teacher, as a preschool teacher, as a 5th grade teacher, as an 11th grade teacher, these words are all alignment. They're all in alignment. And there's trigger words of how a teacher would hear it. I'm seeing you might hear it different, but I'm just trying to give you a different perspective. So no matter what these words are, depression, we talked about our study sessions with families. We went to the APCC. We talked to cultures who said they have no words for some of this in their home language. So this word could mean a bunch of things in someone else's language. So like just being really cognizant of all these things are in alignment.
Can I, when you first started, you talked about a policy that I think.
4,000?
Yeah,
The
one that
proposed policy.
General Counsel had said is going to be before us. What is the scheduling time for that particular one? Do you know, is that an earlier one or is that a?
For the course of the school year, there was the model policy they put out on, I believe it was a response to students expressing self-harm ideation. So we don't have that was the model policy that was put out.
Right, but on the list.
Consider it for 23,
right.
24.
And on the list, is that happening, do you have that happening on the calendar later in the year or earlier, or do you remember?
I don't remember the month that it was happening. It was during
'Cause
this year, though.
It seems like that might be a way to address it if we don't have a policy on any of this, and that's specifically around suicidal ideation, is that
That's correct.
But that doesn't mean it can't also contain other things that
That's
help
true.
us, help the superintendent, train and do PD. I don't know. I'm struggling with
Director
this one.
McElroy it's a difficult conversation because it is so complex and so nuanced. And we see this every day with what our students and staff are dealing with. And we're seeing it all over our society, and that's what makes it so challenging. We all want to do more, but there are limitations to this, and I really appreciated your different examples. I was thinking of the 11th grade teacher in a 6-period day, and then, what is that? And it's a very fine line between recording and diagnosing and then what. Mm-hmm. And so there is no easy answer, and there isn't going to be a quick fix, and there's going to be policy limitations. We gave you some examples of policy topics. They have not been vetted legally by risk management, and so I don't want to paint a picture that says, A, that's going to happen, and B, that it would include all of these things. Right. I think what I have heard you say in your retreat and then tonight is your goals were trying to be something that could be attained this year. So you worked in there to make them in a smart format. And you do big work every day, and so that's where you're continuing each one of these topics, whether it's the first one or the last one. It is going to be a lot for you to get even more clear about. So what specifically would we do? And in this one, I'm not sure I can give you advice without really knowing. So what would you track?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what is it that you're asking to track? And I think it doesn't mean that it doesn't deserve further discussion.
Yeah.
I think it's the fine-tunedness of what I'm nervous about is which data elements, irritability, all these. It doesn't mean that we don't need to work better at it. We just may not be there tonight. that would be my only guidance for you.
Okay. I'm curious what you had said about actually the external medical professionals who are providing the services, who have the data of the kids that come to them. It would be really interesting to, and I don't know if you have access to that or a way to get that, to sort of what are the numbers? What do they look like? What are, how many kids are getting services when, right, immediately after?
You can ask our partner.
Yeah, or, that's what I'm saying, or that some kids are still waiting because there's no.
The data of public data is a challenging piece. You get data just like the rest of our county, and we're getting ready to do our Healthy Youth Survey. There is
I see
data
that.
inside of our Healthy Youth Survey that formalized data, and then we all see this as members of the community. And some, obviously Dr. Nolan has a deeper expertise in this because of the profession that he's in, he sees it on a daily basis. So you have the Healthy Youth Survey, we will administer that again in that. There is no magic data bucket that says this provider is sending us data back. In fact, there's legal requirements why they can't tell us who they're serving. You have the complexity of age. As someone that has teenage children, as a parent, there is an age where I don't have to be allowed in the room anymore if my child doesn't want me to have that access and that information. And so I don't want to paint a picture that says, oh, we can go to our providers and get data on our students of what that is. I don't believe that is a functional piece that we're able to do to a large scale amount.
Okay.
They may be able to tell us anecdotally, I served a TPS student.
Right, and you can get data for the state or regionally or the country, of course, rates of illnesses, and there's some information around lack of resources and how long people are waiting too. But
Okay.
that's all in the diagnosis side. I don't think that's what
Yeah.
at least we were discussing here, so.
Right. Okay, well, does anybody else have anything else? Vice President Strozier, do you have anything else, any questions or thoughts on this? Okay. So are we ready to take a vote? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
We said no.
Yeah, just say no. Abstain?
I'm going to abstain from this one.
Okay. So it does not pass. But I think they said this.
What was the final vote? I didn't.
Well,
what was
we
your
didn't do
vote?
numbers, but it was, I said no.
Okay,
So it is, you just don't have three, is the point.
right.
So even if I hadn't, it would have been two. So it is obvious a topic we're super committed to, and we've spent a lot of money trying to raise money for the district, and the district's been raising money to bring more resources into the system. I want us to think about ways that we can keep this topic and the health of our students, those who are struggling with anxiety and depression. Really, it's emergent. We really need to focus. So let's just try and think not so much as a board goal, but ways that we can help the superintendent and the team by conversations with our community partners or whatever else to figure out how we can have some community focus on this, because it's critical.
The tool, the emotional tool that we're using, it'd be good to see how often it's being used, and if that's
The
helping
emotional
kids.
tool.
The blue zones.
The zones of
the-
regulation.
The zones of regulation?
Right, there's a app that people are supposed to be able to access, and computer. So is that's still being used?
So we use the practice of zones of regulation on a daily basis in classes. There is not a requirement for students to record that in the
Right.
app.
No requirements, but
Yeah.
it's something to have access to.
Well, it's a practice too, so it's like a part of the day. You'll walk into a classroom, like a third grade classroom, and they might be back from recess, and the teacher will be like, let's check our zones. So before they even move into their math lesson, it's just a common practice of like the teaching staff. And then before and after school care providers, the lunch ladies, like everybody does it. I love seeing it at Bernie, because you can see it even in the hallway. The principal will be walking through the hallway, he's like, what's your zone? So it's just kind of a practice.
Right, so it's a practice, as you're saying, but is
We
there
don't
not,
record the
there's
data
not
to the
anything?
scale that I think you're looking for.
Okay.
So we use it as a self-regulation as well as self-awareness, social awareness. It gives a soft place for a staff member to connect with a child to say, oh, I see that you're maybe having a sad day. Candidly, we use it every Tuesday at Cabinet to start our meetings to see where team members are.
I also think what I think is so effective about the zones of regulation is we start at the preschool level and go all the way up to grade 12, and kids in Tacoma actually are used to talking about how they feel. And that's just that's half the battle, especially, but then as the young kids, often it's easier for them, I think, in some cases. And then as you get older, so many confusing feelings, et cetera. So I like what you're bringing up. I mean, I think it's really important. I think it's really important in the older years too, because they can get quiet and not share. So I'm just, the goal, though, as it's written, is not something that I think is, for us, a board goal that we can do in a year. So, which was part of the direction that we had. So, okay, well, let's keep thinking about ways that we can move on this topic, because it's critical. All right, so we now have board goals. We have two of them at this point, the one regarding Indian education and the one around environmental stewardship and transportation. So we will work with the superintendent and cabinet to sort of flesh those out. And as always, if we have topics that are meaty topics that we want to converse about, we do have study sessions available, and we also, I know I can see the superintendent's wheels turning, so I think there's ways that, we'll be able to reach out and get some of this stuff done.
Just to confirm that you did want us, and we're moving forward with an October study session on flex and the overview of what that looks like.
That's something you'd suggested, and, we will talk about it and let you know. But-
When are we going to talk about it?
Are you ready now?
One-on-one calls unless you want to talk about it
Unless you
right
want to talk
now.
about it now, we can. I mean, we sort of agreed to it, but I just want to
Yeah,
make sure that
yeah, I mean, as long as-
everybody, we didn't have a vote or anything, so I just want to make sure we didn't have a vote or anything, so I just want to make sure everybody agrees with that.
Right.
Unless there was something else that was more pressing for the October meeting.
Okay. Does that
Sounds
sound okay
fine.
to
It sounds fine to
the
me.
group? Okay.
Okay, so let's work in that direction. Okay, that sounds good. And tomorrow we'll get a piece of the data, so look at
Mm-hmm.
last year's stuff
Mm-hmm.
and Friday report. Okay, thank you, everyone. I know that's, putting together goals is hard, and actually, the more we had such a intensive year last year, I think now we're all kind of committed to these tough goals, which is great, so we just have to keep moving them forward. All right, item 16, board comment and reports.
Amanda's here.
Yeah, oh, yep, Amanda's here, yay! Amanda, come on up and introduce yourself to I apologize that we didn't read your name when we called roll.
okay.
We got to get back in the habit.
All right.
Summer's over.
Hi, my name's Amanda Peterson. I go to Lincoln High School. It's great to be back. Some things I would like to share. 2 days before school started, Lincoln High School's ASB planned and hosted a back-to-school bash. And I can't even fathom how well that turned out. This is the first time we had ever done this. This was completely student-led, and we had like hundreds of people there. We gave out school supplies. We were able to give so many people free haircuts. We had some people braiding hair and doing hair. We even had some people painting nails, just basic nail art. But it just warms my heart how many people we were able to serve. And we provided dinner too. We had 350 hot dogs, hamburgers in total, and all that food was gone 30 minutes before the event even ended. So we weren't anticipating so many people to come, but so many people showed up, and it was amazing, and everyone had such a great time. And we're hoping that we can do this again next year, and that the next ASB officers will be able to carry on this, hopefully, tradition now. But yeah, and tomorrow we have a pep assembly. We started planning that a few weeks ago, and we're very excited to finally get it over with tomorrow. I mean, everything's planned and ready to go. It's just the beginning of the school year has never been so hectic and so busy. So other than that, spirits are really high at Lincoln. People seem to be really ready for the school year. Students are already working super hard and supporting each other at the same time. Okay.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. We always love your enthusiasm and the reports of what's going on at Lincoln, so thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any other comments or anything on the conversations tonight on tonight's agenda?
Not really. I don't really know much about it, but with Flex, I know that my friend, she just graduated, but she was a part of Flex, and that helped her out a lot because she has younger siblings that she had to take care of in the morning, and then she was able to come to school for second, third period, and throughout the rest of the day. So I know that Flex helped her a lot. I don't really know much about everything else.
Well, thank you. Anecdotal information, so important too. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
All right, anybody else have a report since our last board meeting, which was something like August 24th or whatever it was?
I don't have a real report, but school is back in the swing of things. I went to Northeast Tacoma Elementary School, and that's my first time being there since I want to say 2015. And it was really nice, to see the environment of how engaged, all the parents were, all the kids were. They have this practice of, greeting every single family. So they have, 2 drop-off zones, there's 3 technically. So you have a bus zone, the little kids are over here, 5th grade's in the back, they know what to do. So it was just really exciting to see their first day of school, giving fist bumps and high fives. And then also talking with the staff. They were so nice to me. They were like, do you want to come in my classroom? I'm like, it's the first day of school. I would never let anyone in my classroom on the first day of school, but they did. And so that was really nice. And the principal was really warm and just kind of talked about the climate of her school, some of her social emotional practices, and what a warm welcome looks like for her. I've been using that as an introductory question, hi, I'm Chelsea, I'm your board director. What's a warm welcome look like for you? And hers was cool. So yeah, I think, I can't tell you verbatim, it's a secret.
Okay.
Trade secret. But I'll message you later.
Okay.
Also, you should come visit because that school's really cool. But yeah, I think that all the schools are awesome. And I think I'm learning, this is my 3rd school year technically. I started in the middle of one, and so every year the board directors, we get to visit different segments of the population, and we get to hang out with different ages of children, and we get assigned. And so I was walking into this school year kind of wow, I've never been to most of the schools on the northeast side of Northeast Tacoma. I've never been there. As a student, I was on the north end, which is a whole different vibe, and so it was kind of cool to see although we're different, we have a lot of similarities. And the thing that we most had in common is a lot of the SEO practices. So every student, every day, whole child practices. It's really cool to see that they're not just happening in a bubble, it's everywhere. That's my report.
Thank you. All right, Dr. Leon.
No big report, just been at some sideline events and taking care of kids with some residents and keeping people healthy. The Olympic Sport and Spine trainers are really excellent in helping our kids stay healthy.
Cool. All right. Vice President Strozier.
So we started this meeting talking about welcoming the class of 2036, and I have a member of that class in my house, and you would think that she is the queen of the world now because she is in school full time. But I'm really the king of the world because I no longer have to pay daycare fees. Yes. So shout out to her teacher and those who have to deal with her throughout the school year, throughout the school day. Good luck. And
She's got some energy.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I'm excited about that. I spent some time at Foss on day 1, and then I also went to their opening night or their opening football game against CP. At CP. I missed the opening night home game, but I will be at Mount Tahoma on tomorrow when they take on Washington because I think that might be a guaranteed victory. So I'm looking forward to cheering on our Falcons. And that's some old AD, that's some AD rivalry stuff from my past that just came out there, but it's okay. We'll be there cheering on our Falcons tomorrow night when they take on the Washington Patriots. And that's it.
Cool. All right, so and my report is I wanted to just let folks know a little wrap-up report on summer late nights. It was very exciting. We served over 1,100 individual students, but they showed up for, over the 10-week period, over 10,000 student opportunities where they walked in and got fed a great warm meal and had played basketball or D&D or JS games or did, just sat with friends and talked or did whatever. There was so many options for these kids. We had special opportunities of visitors that came in and spoke with the kids, did some activities, but also maybe just sat down and talked with them. I went to several of the late nights during the summer, and those sites were just energized. Those kids were so happy to be there. And they really appreciated it. And I have to shout out to our partners at Metro Parks Tacoma and at the Boys and Girls Clubs and the YMCA. They really, their staff were the ones the major part of the staffing came from those three groups, and they were fantastic with the kids. It was really great. Lots of great friendships were made. I love talking to the sixth graders that were just coming in. They, they're so, comparatively speaking, they're small, they look a little lost, and summer late night really helped them. They, the older kids, I saw them, trying to include these younger kids, and then these kids came out with so much confidence. Anyway, it was a great event, and I hope as a community we're going to be working on trying with our community partners to try and raise the resources to be able to do summer late nights into the future. So keep your eyes on that one. The other thing, as you've heard, we had a board retreat in August, and that was, I always find the board retreats particularly important and stimulating. We always start with an opening icebreaker, often a social emotional learning skill, and this one was it was also just really good. It was a great retreat. We spent a lot of time talking about goals, and you could tell we have a lot of ideas of that, and then we bubbled these goals up after everyone had a chance to go home and think about it. They sent them around, and we looked at them. So it's a process, and I appreciate the time and energy everybody puts in to get the work up here done. But I think that those retreats help us understand each other better and really bond and work together well. So thanks for that, and for the staff that join us on those. Thank you on making them happen. And we held it actually at Fawcett Elementary, which was the brand new school, and we were they have a community room right as you come in the door. So it's open for use by the community and for certain things, and during the school day, there's a place for, kids to meet with their families and a counselor or whatever. It's private. It's so nice. But it just seemed, I don't know, it was just hard. The school was quiet. There was nobody there. And then I went the next morning for first day of school, and it was rocking. So Fawcett is a beautiful school. The kids are excited. The staff is wired up. So congratulations to everybody for making the first couple of weeks of school. We're almost through it tomorrow. And then I think things will start settling down. So that was great. I also don't know if any of you were in the area here of CAB, but on the first day of school, a superintendent and I got up on the roof and rang the bell. So if you heard the bell, that was us ringing in the new year. So that's always a fun thing to do. I think my other last piece of sharing is we had a JMAC meeting right after our last week, I guess, and they discussed summer late nights, and we talked about the data. And then they also focused on community wealth building. And this was one of those topics it really is exciting. I know it's very bureaucratic in a sense, but it's what makes JMAC and the work we do so important, because it was a group of folks that are part of the Tacoma Anchor Network, which includes higher ed and the city and Tacoma Public Schools, and just a whole lot of different folks who are all government agencies. And they talked about local procurement and, trying to figure out how we make it easier for the community to contract with us, how we get them paid faster, how, equitable processes and services, so that we work with women-owned and women-run businesses, minority-owned businesses, local Tacoma/Pierce County businesses, and it's something that we have done very well at. And kudos to our Chief Operating Officer there in the back, Chris Williams, and his whole team for when we build schools or put up new playgrounds. Which those of you, I don't know if you've gone to some of these schools lately, elementary in particular. A lot of the schools got new playgrounds this summer, and it's pretty impressive. They're really amazing. So shout out to Chris and his team. But they've been sort of leading all of our colleagues in terms of how we are on minority and women-owned business details and equitably working with different contractors, small businesses. And so they gave a report, and it was great to hear that other agencies are really focusing on this in a big way. So one of those great bits of news for the community that we're working together and trying to help each other be better for our community. So that's, yep. Oh, and Director McElroy has something else.
All right, so I knew that you were going to talk about late nights, and I forgot that I was going to tell you. So I used to be a late night staff, so I know there's a few organizations that are doing them all year round.
Yep.
So just calling out the YMCA, the Lakewood branch, the Morgan branch, Hazelwood, Tom Taylor, and Gordon are all doing late nights, 5 p.m. to 9:30. Metro Parks has expanded their late nights.
Are they doing them every day?
It's on Fridays,
Yes,
only
I
Fridays.
just want to make that clear.
Oh, for everyone else. The parents know, the ones who've been going, they know.
Yeah, but the ones who haven't don't.
All right, so middle school team late nights, they're at Mason Middle School from 5 to 10 p.m., at Hunt, ooh, okay, there, I can read really well, and at Meeker, and then there's high school late nights at the center at North Point, Star Center, and the Eastside Community Center. So Fridays throughout the school year, check out your local partners, because TPS, we did our part, and then there's other people who are carrying on that mantle, and people have been doing this for decades. There's also a few small community-based organizations that are doing them. I would call them all out, but there's a bunch of them. If I leave somebody off, somebody's going to be mad. So check out Metro Parks and the YMCA for late nights on Fridays for middle school and high school students.
Thank you. All right. Does anybody else have anything else to share this evening before we adjourn?
Madam President, just so you know that you do have some trainings next Thursday that you can do online. So in regarding some of the work that you mentioned tonight. So I just don't want you to forget that. And then in the spirit of making sure we don't leave anybody out, I do want to give a special shout out to our safety and security team over the summer. Many people roll up their sleeves every day, and sometimes we don't get a chance. So obviously under the direction of Mike Rupert, but a special shout out to to Robert and the team. They were very responsive and built some amazing relationships. So just want to say thank you to all of our safety and security teams. They helped us get through a very important time.
Thank you. Okay, item number 17, announcement of the next regular board meetings. We will meet again here on the 28th. We will also, as the superintendent said, we'll have a study session time slot that we're using for professional development to take some required training that's around Indian education. So that's helping us move towards our goal. That is next Thursday, and I believe Tracy will be getting us links because we can do that remotely, correct? So we don't have to come in. Oh. Okay, did you hear that? Okay. All right, thank you for that. And then again on October 12th is our first business meeting in October. And then it sounds like we're having a study session that next week on Tacoma Flex. Okay? So that is the next schedule for that. And with that, we are adjourned. Good evening, everyone.